Hi, careerists and colleagues. It's Kimberly Robb Baker with This Little Brand, and I'm here to talk about the National Resume Writers Association conference I attended last week, the first week of October, maybe 2 weeks ago by the time you see this, depending on how quickly I can edit this video. But I wanted to give you all the highlights for me of the trends I saw from some of the presentations and some of the just kibitzing that I did with my colleagues. So, storytelling was huge. Louise Kurzmark gave a keynote speech about our industry and how it's changed in 20 years, which is the length of the NRWA's existence. And a lot of that change is, from longevity to the sense that, well, you're not going to work for a company for 40 years anymore. You're going to always have to be ready for change, so always having your communications ready, to now coming on in just expected short tenures and a gig economy. And as we separate healthcare from the workplace and get our healthcare situation sorted out, the gig economy is only going to keep growing. And what that means in terms of our environment is that the storytelling is much more important. A lot of my colleagues, of course, I've branded myself as the career storyteller since, I think around when my daughter was born, around 7 years ago, because I've been a storyteller my whole life and I saw the value in it. But now I see many of my colleagues embracing, and some have for years. Kathy Hansen comes to mind. So some colleagues have also been doing this for years, but now I see, whereas a lot of people used to maybe think that was sort of an airy-fairy thing, that it's becoming very real, that storytelling is necessary. And my colleagues are realizing en masse almost that they are really telling the stories of their clients, and that even people who are writing their own communications need to be thinking about what their core story is, what is their core value, because the story is what's going to bring a brand together. And Deb Dibb and there were 3 keynotes, we were so lucky. Deb Dibb in her keynote presentation talked the same thing about, in this gig economy, your value has to be portable, right? You can't always rely on the fact that there are going to be people around you who've been working with you and know you. You often will have to bring your value with you and have a shorthand for conveying that value and quickly getting to collaborate with people. And stories are a piece of that. And what's a piece of stories? Vulnerability. Deb Dibb talked a lot about vulnerability and the scary things you have to do. It's being inauthentic is no longer optional at work. That was a lot of Deb's point, and I completely agree. But being authentic is scary, right? So there's this dichotomy, because it's scary to put your real self out there. It's scary to state your opinions when other people might disagree. It's scary to bring all of the pieces of your identity to the table. It's scary to tell your story. But who do we admire? We admire people who are vulnerable, right? We admire people who bring their whole selves to the table. Like, all the things that are scary to do are all the things that we admire in people. So it's time to really, have some courage and go forth and be vulnerable and tell your story. Deb and a couple of other people pointed out that artificial intelligence and machine learning and robots are changing everything. So robots are changing the workplace, right? And artificial intelligence even. So when jobs that humans used to do, computers and robots are going to increasingly do. And that means change. Again, it's the change, and you have to, if you used to do something that a computer or a robot now does, you have to have your story together, and how the story of what you have done has prepared you in a unique way to bring your value now to a new venue, because new opportunities will be opening up with robots, with AI, right? It's going to open up, like I think it was Mark Cuban who recently said that the liberal arts degree is going to be the one to have now, like it used to be the programming degree or the coding degree, or, be a doctor, be a lawyer. His point was, now we're talking about people who can think, right? If the machines are sort of taking care of, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If the machines are taking care of our basic needs, human beings now have more space for thinking, for creativity, for actually, hopefully, if we can, bring our light and bring our authenticity into the world, taking advantage and not making it like a horrible Isaac Asimov world, but making it a wonderful opportunity that the humans have some time and space to think about the deeper things in life, to think about the beauty of mathematics or social justice or whatever it is that each person's real gifts are. So bring your story, listen to who you really are, what your real interests are. Other ways that AI is changing things, and this leads into LinkedIn, is just the information that we can get now that is valuable to human beings, but previously took too much time from human beings to get. So LinkedIn is going to be making a more robust video platform. And with that video platform, it's going to use voice recognition to pull out keywords from your videos that you've posted on LinkedIn. And those keywords will have weight in terms of matching you with people who are searching for certain types of people. So be prepared for that. And that's another place to come and be vulnerable in front of a video like I'm doing right now. It's not that scary, I promise. And the other thing, which is further down the line probably, is with facial recognition. LinkedIn is working on being able to use facial recognition in videos to ascertain things about you. It sounds kind of Big Brother-ish, and I hope it won't be. I guess the negative, scary side of that is Big Brother is watching you and knows all your inner workings, and I don't know what they could do with that. But the cool side of it is that, say I want someone with a high EQ, or say I'm looking to diversify in my workplace in terms of making it a friendlier place for introverts, for example. So these are interesting things that the facial recognition software may be able to provide. It may be able to help companies who are hiring fulfill more of that cultural match early on in the process. Whereas the tools that we have today somewhat can find a cultural match, especially if you're telling your story. But in terms of what the computers can do in finding that cultural match, that's going to grow tremendously. And I don't do too many military resumes or federal resumes, but Diane Hudson gave a great presentation that gave me some insights. So, oh my goodness, first of all, man, you've got to be tough to go get a federal job. In 2015, apparently, the federal government got 20 million applications and only 200,000 were hired. And on these federal resumes, I can't even remember what the names of them are, but it's basically stories. It's like challenge, action, result stories, and they call them something specific in the federal environment. I mean, the federal resume, ironically, has always been about stories. And I think that's wonderful. And it's something I wouldn't expect from our government to be so interested in stories, but they always have been. Now, this military to civilian transition is a lot about shedding the military culture. Like there was, I guess Diane had a client who was calling her and saying, like, I'm not getting a second interview no matter what I do. So she says, well, why don't you come into my office and we'll talk about it. So the gal, I don't think the film will get me, but so I'll stay seated. I'll stand. You won't see my face, but you get the idea. So the gal comes into her office and is like standing, and Diane's like, oh, have a seat. No, that's okay. I'll stand. She's like standing at attention. So she's like, all right, I think I see our problem. Or I guess one of her other clients was, she's like, tell me about yourself. And the first thing he said was, I'm trained to kill. I shoot to kill. I'm trained for that. So really shedding that culture, shedding the strict hierarchy, being able to be yourself and be somewhat, responsive to the emotional part of human interaction. She talks a lot about trailing spouses, and that's another place I can insert that the storytelling is so important because these trailing spouses, oh my goodness, like if you think military people have very little control over their careers, the spouses who are following on are having short tenures or they are tapped into the gig economy. So story is very important there. take advantage, military transition people should really take advantage of their assets. So their assets are, they tend to be disciplined, self-starters. Everybody in the military has some kind of leadership that they're trained to do. They're good at building teams. They're drug-free. And they have well-defined skill sets. Most people in the military have done one or more things which are specific and defined. I feel like this thing just shut off on me. I'm going to check. Did you shut off on me, camera? Oh, you didn't. Okay. Yay. And okay, one last cool thing which I found, even though I don't do a whole lot of military to civilian transitions. Of course, you can give equivalent titles so that somebody civilian's not trying to translate your crazy long military title that really doesn't say what you did functionally in corporate language. You can translate that so people understand. And the cool thing I found out, because I have run into this a lot with either military transition people or with, what do I want to say, like people who've worked as government contractors or with government contractors, a lot of times you get into the juicy part of their work and like, well, that's top secret. No, I can't tell you what I did. I can't tell you where I did it. So options for that, really cool. There is something called an ORB, which is an officer record brief. So there are things in there that you can, that are public. They're fine. They've been vetted. You can include those. Often there will be awards. Whatever's written with the award, sometimes it's apparently nondescript, but sometimes it's very detailed. And whatever's written in the award is part of public record. And there also is usually a legal resource for veterans where they can run their resume by the legal resource and just make sure everything's okay. So I thought that was really very useful. And yeah, that's what I learned about military resumes and career trends moving towards storytelling and how machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, is kind of going to change our work world and our job search world. Thank you, NRWA.